Hello everyone, in today's lab I'm going to show you all how to do some Photoshop, some compositing, take renders from different scenes and put them together. So a really useful practice to know how to do, not only just for still images but also for full-blown animations or video editing, anything like that. Kind of like getting into compiling, let's just say, layers of special effects, but this is on a basic level, right? So it took me a minute to figure out how to get there because I kept getting, this one does have a transparent background for my smoke and for my fire, but it took me a minute to figure out why it kept rendering with the black background on it. So it took me a few renders to figure out. For instance, let's just see the first fire one I rendered out. It rendered with the background in it, and I really wanted it to be transparent. So, with that being said, when you render this out, you want to figure out how to make it as easy as possible. So instead of having to go like I have, the newest version of Photoshop here. So if I click remove background on this image, it kind of looks a little tacky, right? It's got this black outline around it. It didn't do it extremely well. And on top of that, you don't get the transparency through the actual flame. Now it's got like sort of this black background behind it, and that's kind of not what we're really trying to do. So I just undid that. And what we want our image to import into Maya just like this. Now I didn't even realize how much black smoke was on this, but that's not a problem. We're going to focus just on the flame, and I'm going to show you some tricks and tips on how to do this. So the first thing I want to show you how to do, especially with something like this, is I have my flame here. Now I already did a render just so I could have it, the video move a little bit faster. But let me show you the render settings I set up. So if I go to render settings, this was probably the one that got me the most. I don't know if in older versions I had to, it didn't. So the biggest thing is even though I set this image format as a PNG, PNGs will hold the transparency background, where JPEGs won't. I actually had to basically tell Maya to save it out like this. So when and then I was just playing around in case I wanted to render out, an actual flame, but we're just going to stick with a still image. So this is what I have here for the settings. I believe it's all default, but I did play around with them a little bit. So just make sure yours match. I will include images in our canvas file, but I really want you to be able to know how to do this. And then I have the little alpha channel mask in parentheses here, checkboxed as well. I did a higher quality render since I was only rendering one frame, and it took a little bit. And then renderable camera, whatever camera you want to render from, but the rest is all the same. So then I hit close and I do my Arnold render or render current frame, right? And I come up with this image. So to make a long story short, when I went to file save image, and then I locate where I'm going to save it and yada yada, right? I have to save this as fire dot. You see where it comes up with .jpeg? Now if I just left this blank, it's automatically going to save it out as a JPEG, and you don't want to do that. So I'm going to do fire2 dot or fire3 dot png. So you actually have to physically write the extension. This is something that for I don't know how many years I've been using Maya for, you've always kind of had to do this, and it kind of took me for a spin because when I'm doing UV snapshots and all this other stuff, it typically knows it, but for whatever reason, when you're rendering and saving out the image, you can't just do a drag and drop down, and it just totally slipped my mind. And I was thinking, because I set it as PNG in my render settings, it would automatically save it out as a PNG. And of course I should have double checked it, because I didn't check the extensions on these, just because the way I have it laid out. I didn't catch it right away. So anyway, the point of it is make sure you check your extensions when you're saving out images. So fire3.png, I'm going to click save in Photoshop. I'll go ahead and open it. It's going to be the same as the previous one I just did, Fire3, and then you'll see this is where I figured it out after a couple tries. Fire3.png right here. It's file type. So I should probably adjust it so it shows the extensions for future reference, but now I know anyway. So Fire3, open, there you go. And then just out of curiosity, I actually tried this just to see just to make sure, and it looks identical to my render. But in the render, because it comes with a black background, you can't really see all that black smoke. I mean, you can see it in the, I can close this now. You can kind of see it in here. However, when I go back to Photoshop, it seems like quite a bit more. But anyway, regardless, so you can see that transparency I was talking about. When you have this here, you can see the flame a little bit more, but it does have a translucent quality to it. So I wanted to keep all that information, and anyway, this was the result. So now, no, I don't have to save that. And this is what I kept rendering out with the fire and the smoke and yada yada. So I stuck with the effects because I thought it would be a cool little thing. I'm doing this on my midterm, or our midterm, and render 2, it should be. So here's my render, and I wanted to just up this image a little bit more, right? I wanted it to look a little bit better. I never did include the flames inside the scene. And sometimes when you do that, it can really play with the lighting and things. So sometimes it is something you want to do after the fact, but you know, it's kind of like trial and error. So, anyway, so if I do file, open, and I open up my fire and my smoke, right? I can go ahead and start adjusting some of these things. So I'm going to do a Control A on here for select all. I'm going to start with the fire, and then I'm going to do Control C, and then I'm going to jump over to my render 2 and press Control V. Now it's blocking quite a bit, right? I'm going to press Control T for my free transform, which would be up here for free transform. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag this. Let's just start with this one. And then I want to scale it down. And I just want to get it to fit. And we have this really cool little flame here. Now, it looks good, but that black smoke's really sort of taken me for a whirl. So the fastest and easiest way, fire right, left wall. So it's on the right wall on the left side. That's how I'm going to do it. So a little bit, a really quick, easy trick to this, and I'm going to show you some different blending options here in Photoshop, is I might have had a little bit of the too dark in here, but we'll see how it plays out. With this black smoke, I'm not in love with it, right? I don't want it to have that sort of dark darkness coming to it. So what I can do is on my blend mode right here, I can click down where it says normal. Now it has all these, you see this one says dissolve, and it sort of gets, whoops, it sort of gets a little pixelated. Then it's darkened, and it kind of becomes, it's just sort of darkening the image, but it's holding that transparency. Multiply is good in certain situations. I think I use multiply when I'm overlaying UVs over my texture. I'm sure I did it already in our one of the previous labs we've done. And I'm just going to hover over, really nothing different on this particular image between color burn and linear burn. Darken kind of dissolves the flame and keeps the smoke. And lighten. Now that looks like a winner. So it kind of gets rid of all of that dark, black, casted smoke shadow look to it. And I kind of just want to keep that. But let's just see what the others do. Screen's not too bad. Screen's pretty cool. It keeps the flame really long, but I mean, all depends on what you're going for. Color dodge, kind of neat. Kind of reminds me of like a Minecraft type of fire or something. Linear dodge, so whichever one you like the best. Lighter color, kind of like that. And there's overlay, soft light, hard light, pin light. But I think I already kind of narrowed down my winners, but I just want to double check. That's kind of cool if I wanted to change the kind of theme of it. You know, you can go with that blue sort of soul-y kind of smoke. And then they have black and white. Neat. So I think it was lighter color. I think this is my personal favorite out of the ones we have. I'm going to rotate this a little bit, maybe place it right over here. And now I've got a little flame that is in my scene, right? I don't even know what button I just pressed. If that happens to you, just press escape. It should undo any tool you have selected. So I'm going to repeat this process. I can just click and drag this down, or you could do another Control V, anything you want to do. On this one, I'll go to the left side of the wall. So I'm going to do an edit. Because this flame is sort of swooping this direction, it has this sort of curve to it. I'm going to flip it horizontally just so it looks a little bit better on the opposite side. So I'm going to go to Transform and flip horizontal. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of place this over here. I know I'm going to need it to be smaller. Now if I was being really, really particular, what I would do is I would go through my Maya file and I would play this, and then I would render out a different flame if I wanted them all to be different, because no fire is going to be identical to the other one. But for this lab, this is more than sufficient. And then this is going to be left, fire, left, wall. And then I'm going to do that lighter color again. And now I've got that little flame there. I can always play around with the transparency. If I feel like it's a little too hot, I can go to my opacity here, use this little slider, and you can see, but I'll leave it at full opacity. And then Control V. I pressed Enter to exit, or basically tell Maya, or Photoshop, excuse me, that was complete. I'll go ahead and place this one here, press Enter, and then I'm going to go ahead and change that to Fire RR wall. And I'm going to keep these sort of in order. And then on this one, I'm going to go to that lighter color. And then I'm going to add my final layer, or my final flame. I'm going to do that transform again, edit, transform, flip horizontal. And I'm going to go ahead and drag that right over here. I forgot to resize it first. And go ahead and press Enter. I'm also going to rename it Fire LR wall. And then I'm also going to switch this to lighter color. The other thing, just to keep my file here, my Photoshop file, kind of clean and easy to work with. I hate having like a million layers, especially when I'm like done working with them. I like to highlight all of these, and then there's a little folder button down here in the bottom right corner. I don't know if they call it group. Yeah, create a new group, but it looks like a little folder. Click that, and now they're all grouped into one folder, and I'm just going to call this fire. So I've got my flames done. Now if I wanted to, I can go into my smoke. Again, I'm going to do a escape. Control A, Control C. Let's see if it works. It's not showing me my little Control A, Control C, and the little dashed line, Control V. So it still worked just fine. Now this one, I don't want it to be hiding my flame, so I want to click and drag this layer below it. And then on my smoke, just use my arrow keys, kind of place it into place. And I'm going to bring my opacity down on the smoke. I feel like it's just a little too strong. And this is all just a matter of personal feel. Oh. Just do it this way. And then if there's certain parts of the smoke I like better than others, I can sort of keep it, but let's just say I want the smoke to be like right there. And obviously I could have taken a different render where it's, you know, whatever, but I'm just going to stick with this just for time. So I've got this flame here. Now, one of the things I'd like to show you, because I think it's really, really useful, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you'll see I've got this smoke, even though it's opaque down here, that's kind of, you know, blocking this out, and you don't even see this pixelation when you're far away, so I'm okay with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my, before I do that, let's just play around with these to see if any of them kind of work well. So multiply, and I should probably zoom back out. And it might, you know, if you're happy with one of these, feel free to use it, but I just want to see what they got here before I show you what I was about to do. I mean, the black smoke doesn't look too bad, but I probably want a little bit more transparency. But just for purposes, for learning purposes, I'm going to keep it like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Layer, and I'm going to go to Layer Mask, and I'm going to do Reveal All. So Layer, with my smoke layer selected, I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All. So now what I'm going to do is, we already kind of learned about this, but Photoshop has the same thing. So black and white are going to be sort of what you can see and what you can't see, right? I can't remember exactly what it is in Photoshop. It might be the same as Maya. But if you notice right over here, it creates a little chain link to it, and it creates sort of its own layer on its layer. So if I tap B, I want my brush tool. It didn't work, of course. So I'm selecting my brush tool. It's keyboard shortcut B. And I'm going to just tap right click, and I'm okay with that. Maybe I want this to be 0% hardness, which means it has a softer edge on it. And then what I can do is, so black is going to be what you can't see. So the whole thing is white. When I use black, it should start to sort of, and now I've kind of created my own little smoky little thing here. But I just think it's super cool. Oops. Super cool to know how to do that. So now I've got what I can see and what I can't see. And if you wanted to adjust it, you could even do this with the flames. You could sort of make your own little kind of adjustments to it to make it more on the smoke side. So, or, you know, a different shape, if you will. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and show you that. And what I'm going to do just for time again, I'm going to just go ahead and drag this over here, and then maybe I rotate this one a little bit, and maybe I have it just coming off the top of the flame, right? And then I'm going to do the same thing, and I guess I should name these the same naming convention. So this is going to be LL wall, and this is going to be LR wall, I think. Oh, I mixed them up. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that underneath. And I'm just going to continue this process. So I have a couple more. Maybe I want to do kind of like that, actually. And then this is going to be RL. No. Yeah, right wall, left side. And then I'll do one more. It's going to be right wall, right side. All right, and then move that into place. I just tap Control T to do that. Control T is kind of my go-to to move and scale objects. The free transform, it's amazing. Instead of going to here and then trying to figure out another way to scale it, yada yada, just Control T. It's a much quicker way of doing it for me anyway. And I have all these, so you can, if I wanted to make them a little bit different, so like on this one, if I paint on this layer, now I'm painting just that black, right? Don't want to do that. I'm going to go to the white layer here, if you notice, and then now I can go ahead and use my black brush and sort of paint this out how I want it to look. And then if I wanted to make adjustments. So all up to you. But something like that. I'm good with it. All right, so now that I've got that, what's next? So I want to cover how to create some extra lighting, some extra shadows, things like that. Can be super beneficial. So I'm going to put these all in a layer now, or in a group, excuse me. And I'm going to call this smoke. So I've got my two composited renders that I put into the scene, right? Now, and you could do this with anything. Like if I wanted to put like another shield in, I keep pointing at the screen. I wanted to put another shield like right here that's mounted to the wall, or a window, for instance, or something. I could do that, and I could just, you know, render it in a 3D scene and add it to it later. Anyway, the possibilities are really endless. So now I want to go back in and do some manual lighting. So I'm just going to start with highlights. So I'm going to grab my brush tool again, and I'm going to grab like a light gray. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. And I typically start this on like a soft light. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the little sword here. And I'm going to bring my brush size down. And I'm going to do this all with my mouse. And let's just say I know that there's light coming kind of from everywhere around here. So I'm going to start right here. Whoa. And then I'm just going to click and drag and sort of do this, right? And I'm in my soft light. And you see how that just adds just a ton of, so if I toggle it off, it just adds a little bit more to it. And for demonstration purposes, normally I probably put like simply like sword highlights and sword shadows, but because I don't want to take too long, I'm going to go ahead and just do it all on one layer, but I don't 100% recommend that. Now, over here, let's make a slightly larger brush. I've got a lot of light coming from, and this I'm going to bring underneath. I've got a lot of light coming from these flames, right? Or I've got some at least. So what I could do, and maybe I want it to be a brighter white, right? Or that's a little too white. Probably stick with that light gray. But I've got this flame sort of, it should be a little bit brighter over here, right? And maybe and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just click this once like a big spotlight. Boom. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing right there. And then I'm going to do it right there as well. So I'm just trying to add a little bit of light to it. So I'm going to go ahead and add, well, since I said I'm doing it all on I'll just add a new layer. Anyway, so highlights too. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring this down to like 20, maybe a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to make it full white this time, and I'm going to just see if I can, let's change this to soft light, and just see if I can brighten up this side here, because I've got that. I just can't see the edge because it's too dark. So we'll do something like that. And then if I wanted to, now I can just sort of paint this to be a little bit brighter, right? I could always use my eraser tool and run straight down. Of course I can. And then just run straight down and kind of get rid of that highlight across the, whatchamacallit, the stones. And then in the process of doing all that, I can also add shadows to things. So let's just say on my sword, for instance, I'm going to switch to a black or a dark gray. Right, I'm going to press that. I'm going to bring this down to like 25, and let's just say this side's a little bit darker. Oh, let's do shadow. So let's go ahead and try that again. And let's go soft light, and maybe even a little bit darker. And let's just say I want this side to be a little bit darker, right? I can do that. And even still, maybe it's casting a little bit of a shadow on the shield here, so I can go ahead and sort of do something like that, right? And then back to my highlights. Now, when you're doing something like this, you typically want to figure out where your light source is coming from. So in this particular case, I'm just going to use sort of the flames as reference. I'm going to go ahead and create some like rim lighting. All right, and then maybe at the bottom, let me just make this black and white. At the bottom, you can darken it up. Again, switch my color. Right, and then that's too dark. But you get the idea. So you go through this entire scene. I'll just create some type of right, and I'm just playing around right now, but to give you some ideas, in this case, actually, the light would be coming from the bottom, and then you get some light from these flames, right? So, but just try to keep in mind, it's not a bad practice to actually just sort of say the light's coming from this direction, and then you would go ahead and map sort of your highlights and shadows from that. So go back to my shadow layer. I know my layers are all mixed up. I haven't really been paying too close attention to it, but I could darken up some of these other spots that shouldn't be as lit up, right? Maybe I do a little in here. I'm probably better off holding the shift and getting, and if I wanted to darken this up, I could go ahead and do something like this. Take me forever, but just because I have so many books here. But now there's a little bit more cast of a shadow in there. And then maybe on the bottom here, and let's make it a lighter color. Let's do right? You get the idea. I don't know if I love that. But you get the idea of where I'm going with it. So I simply, and then let's just say I wanted some of these to have a, because the light's coming from the right side, I said. Maybe I turn this up a little bit. Nope, way too much. Nope, still too much. Whatever I had it on was way better. All right, so I'm pretending the light's coming from the right side. So if the light was coming from this way, right? And you can see the effect you get. And you start to create some really neat lighting effects, and you haven't even added, you haven't had to do this in Arnold, so you can do some final touch-ups, because you know the majority of your scene is technically lit. This is just to add some cool little features to it to make it stand out. So if you look at this now, this bookcase, you'll notice that the books on the top are much lighter on the one side. They're shadowed in between a little bit more clearly. If I turn it off, you can see the difference. Might be a little too extreme, but you get the idea. Again, with this crate, let's create a new layer. Crate. It's pretty dark, right? If I want to lighten it up, I can do that, right? But the light's really coming from this side, I said, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And I can probably do this a couple times. And then maybe I lighten this side up just a hair. And in which case what I would do, if I didn't want it to be too much, I'd go with a gray. Needs to be a little bit brighter than that. And I don't want it to get too bright. So now I've got more of this box on the right side. That crate has a little bit more light on it than it did before. So I did it once just to the one side, but then I duplicated that layer just to give it a little bit more brightness. So you can do things like that to pull some of those details out of it because it's just too dark, right? So what I want you to do is go ahead and go through your scene. You know, if I have the light coming from, I don't know what layer I have it on anymore because I've been messing around too much. But if I had the light coming from that far right side, what I would do actually is I would darken this side. And then I would add I could even maybe, you know, something like that. Give it sort of like a happy medium sort of blending. So you can see that where the light's coming from, and you're basically just casting all your own shadows. So these could have a little bit more light, right? Maybe. And you don't have to just use black or white or anything like that. I could do like yellow to have like a yellowy sort of or bluey kind of shadowed. On the smoke, let's just say the smoke is casting a shadow behind that. Switch it to soft light. Probably gonna have to go with black. Maybe the smokes, you know, maybe just need a little bit of that extra from the smoke, casting a shadow. But I just want to show you real quick what it looks like with it on and off, and you can really see the differences in what you're able to accomplish, right? Let's hide, I think it's this one. So I want you to go ahead, I want you to add some highlights where the direction of the light would be coming from. I want you to add shadows to it. I want you to, you can include any images you like, you know, fire, smoke, what is it? What's the other one in Maya? I'm drawing a blank. Fireworks. Lightning. So if you wanted to do your own little thing, at the end of one of the labs, I forget which one it was. I think it was it was fire or smoke. In one of those videos where I quickly cover how to use some of these. But you could, and that's just for effects. You, like I said, you could import literally. Let's just do file open. You could bring in your own image, right? I want you to do at least the fire for sure, because I want you to play around with the different blend layers, the blending options, to try to just get a feel for that. Adding color and materials. No. What do I have that's a little bit more? Coffee table. No. Oh, okay. Wrong one. So I'll just do something that we've done this semester. You know what? Let's just do this. A file, new scene. Yeah, let's save it. File, import. All right. So in here, let's just add a quick, I have no shaders on it, but let's just go ahead and add one real quick. Oh, that's why. Open. That's fine. Very dark. That's weird. Okay. This is a model I did a long time ago. And geometry. Okay, so I'm gonna need a light of some sort, so let's do, I wanna do this quick. But being a little weird, huh? All right, so let's just take a look and see what that looks like. I'm going to change this to PNG anyway. Let's do a higher render. Everything else should be good. Let's run a quick Arnold render. Do I have it at a decent angle that I can import this in? Let's just go like that, and let's do Arnold render. Is that already done? I'm just gonna say it is. File, save image. Just to show you really quickly. Make sure you save it with the extension .png, and it should, in theory. Control O to open. It's going to be at the top because of alphabetical order. And it did not save it kept the transparency on the background, which is exactly what I wanted. I tried to get a decent render from this, just to put it like right here. And then now I press enter. So I've got this little coffee table or whatever you want to call it here. But it wasn't in the original scene, so it's got totally different lighting. So this is where it would be really useful to go in here and underneath do a little soft light, probably a little bit darker underneath here, right? So let's bring that brush size down, not too far down, maybe a little bit more. Oh. This one has to be above it. Soft light. All right, maybe that's too dark. Maybe I bring this opacity down a little bit on my shadow. And then create another one. I would be naming these, so this is like drawer shadow. I would literally have each one sort of labeled for every layer I do. Let's do highlights real quick. So, and then even on the drawer shadow, whatever, I'm gonna do a quick little shadow here because it's underneath. Darken that up a little bit, but not too much. Something like that. And then on my highlights here, oop, soft light. Maybe I lighten up the top, right? And you get the idea. Just try not to make it too, maybe on my little drawer shadow here, maybe there's a little too bright for me, but I want to keep that nice little, oops, wrong color. Now let's make it bright white. Let's really make it stand out, right? Give it that little rim light right on the edge. Even kind of accentuates that wear and tear. And maybe even right here, there's a little rim light going around the corner. But you get the idea. So now I've not only have I imported my fire, my smoke, and a coffee table, as well as the original render. I've just composited a number of different images into one to make it all one scene and sort of make it all concise. So I hope this video was helpful for you, especially for those of you that really enjoy working in Photoshop. This is a great lab to have fun and play around with. You can do this with either your midterm, or if you're far enough with your final, you can start to work on this on your final, which you should have already started, right? And if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on Canvas inbox. I'm always here for you. Other than that, hope you enjoyed the video, and get to work on your finals. All right, bye.